Have you ever wondered why you're always drawn to the ones who can't stay? The ones who say everything right but act like you're optional? Why their distance only makes you hold on tighter? Why the silence from someone you barely know hurts more than the attention from someone who's right in front of you? You're not imagining it, and you're not broken. But there's something deeper at play. When someone doesn't text you back for hours, or seems emotionally distant, or tells you they're just not ready for anything serious, your mind goes into overdrive. You replay conversations, you reread old messages. You make excuses for them, soften their silences, reinterpret their apathy. You wonder if you were too needy, too much, too sensitive, but this isn't just about them. It never was. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in psychology, wouldn't have dismissed this as bad timing or bad luck. He would have asked you to go deeper, to look into the hidden machinery of your mind, into the unconscious patterns that quietly dictate your choices, into the emotional blueprints that were written long before you ever fell in love. Because until you bring the unconscious to light, Jung warned, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You might be generous, loyal, emotionally open. You might communicate clearly, express your needs, give people your full presence. And yet again and again you find yourself falling for someone who can't, or won't, meet you there. They might seem perfect at first, charismatic, intriguing, there's chemistry, they mirror your interests, they say all the right things. But when it matters, when real closeness is required, they vanish. They become vague, hot and cold, present one day, distant the next. You're always left guessing, and you cling to the breadcrumbs, a kind message, a long phone call, a moment of connection. You inflate it, amplify it, build hope around it, as if that tiny fragment is enough to justify the silence that follows. You hold on, not to the person, but to the possibility of them. It's not the first time, it's not the second, it's a loop. A magnetic pull, a pattern so strong, so repetitive, that it starts to feel like destiny. You start thinking, maybe this is just the kind of love I'm meant for, but it's not destiny, it's programming. Beneath your logic, beneath your adult reasoning, there's something older, something aching, and no matter how many self-help books you read, or how clearly you know you deserve more, it still pulls you back. This is the unconscious at work. From a Jungian lens, your unconscious isn't just where repressed memories are stored, it's where the blueprint of your emotional life resides. The unconscious remembers everything, especially what your conscious mind has tried to forget. Here's what this might look like. Let's say you grew up in a household where one parent was emotionally unavailable. Maybe they worked too much, or were emotionally cold, or perhaps they gave love inconsistently, sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn. As a child, you learned not to expect consistent affection. You learned to earn love, to wait for it, to chase it, to mold yourself into what you thought would finally keep it from leaving. Even if you had a normal childhood, if you were told you were loved and had your needs mostly met, small emotional moments leave lasting marks. A parent who tuned out when you cried, who scolded you for being too sensitive, who only gave attention when you achieved something. These experiences write an emotional script, and the script says, love is conditional, love must be earned, love is not always safe, love is inconsistent. Now, as an adult, someone truly available, emotionally secure, and fully present may feel unfamiliar, maybe even boring. Why? Because your nervous system has been trained to associate excitement with the chase, with the maybe, with the uncertainty of being wanted. Love, for many people, becomes fused with longing. This is what psychologists call attachment trauma, and what Jung would describe as a complex, a cluster of memories and emotional energy that shape how you see others and yourself. The love complex is one of the most powerful. It determines who you're attracted to, how you behave in relationships, what you tolerate, and what you expect. The pull toward emotionally unavailable people is not irrational, it's neurological. When you're chasing someone inconsistent, your brain releases dopamine, but not in a steady stream. It comes in spikes. This is called intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that keeps gamblers hooked on slot machines. You get small hits of reward, affection, a message, attention, surrounded by long stretches of nothing. And instead of losing interest, your brain becomes obsessed. The less you get, the more you want. Now consider a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you're dating someone named Alex. You hit it off. Great chemistry. You talk for hours. But then, Alex pulls back. They say they're busy. They stop initiating. You bring it up, they say you're overthinking. They still message you sometimes. Still say they care. But they won't define things, they won't commit. And you find yourself staying, waiting for the next good moment to prove that it's all worth it. What's happening here isn't just emotional confusion, it's psychological regression. Your adult self is being slowly replaced by the child who had to wait for love, the child who had to be good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough. And if you're not aware, you'll keep acting out that old story, trying to make Alex love you in a way your parent never could. Jung said, "We are not what happened to us, we are what we choose to become." But you cannot choose if you are unaware of what is choosing for you. Here's another example. Imagine you meet someone who's calm, consistent. They text back, they ask about your day, they respect your boundaries. At first, it feels good. Then, something shifts. You feel restless, maybe even bored. You don't feel the spark, but ask yourself, what is the spark? Is it love? Or is it the familiar panic of not knowing where you stand? So often, what we call attraction is actually recognition. Not of the other person, but of a pattern, a role, a wound. The unavailable person feels magnetic, not because of who they are, but because of who you were when you first learned to love. And that's the real reason you're drawn to them. You're not just falling for them, you're falling back into something, into an old emotional landscape, into a script your body remembers better than your mind does. And your unconscious whispers, maybe this time I can fix it. Maybe this time I'll be chosen. But that's not love, that's reenactment. You see, your first experience of love wasn't romantic, it was survival. As a child, love wasn't a luxury, it was air. If love was inconsistent, you learned to chase it. If it was absent, you learned to ache for it. If it was conditional, you became the performer, doing anything to be enough. And now, even as an adult, you still carry that emotional imprint. You chase what resembles the original pattern, not because it's good, but because it feels like home. So when someone ignores your needs or gives you crumbs, it doesn't just feel familiar, it feels right. Your nervous system lights up, not with love, but with recognition. That old script comes alive. If I can just make them stay, maybe I'll finally be enough. It's not about them. It never was. They're just playing a role in a story you've been cast in before. The story your inner child never got to finish. Jung called this a complex, a constellation of buried feelings, memories, and beliefs that orbit in your unconscious. These complexes don't fade with time, they grow stronger the more we suppress them, and they often show up in disguise, in attraction, in desire, in the people we can't seem to let go of, even when they hurt us. So the question is never, why do they treat me this way? The real question is, what part of me believes this is normal? When you fall for someone who's unavailable, you're not falling in love. You're falling into a memory, a reenactment. Freud called it repetition compulsion. Jung went further. He said it's not just a habit. It's a call from the unconscious, a cry to resolve what was never healed. You're not in love with them. You're in love with the fantasy. The version of them that finally turns around, that finally stays, that finally sees you. But fantasies are fragile and projections are blinding. Jung taught that we don't see people as they are, we see them as we are. And so we romanticize their silence, interpret their inconsistency as mystery, and call their distance depth, because we're not in love with the person, we're in love with the story. And in that story, they are the savior. But what if they're not here to save you? What if they're here to show you what you still need to save in yourself, because that's what emotionally unavailable people do. They don't create your wounds, they reveal them, they awaken the shame, the abandonment, the fear, the feeling of being too much or not enough, the voice that says, I have to work for love, and that's why you stay, even when it hurts, because the pain feels familiar, and we're wired for familiarity, even if it breaks us. Jung wouldn't tell you to run away from that pain. He'd tell you to listen to it, to sit with it, to follow it all the way down, because the pain is the doorway, not to them, but to you. You stay, because leaving means losing hope. Hope that maybe this time your love will be enough, that maybe this time the ending will change. But real healing doesn't happen by rewriting the past with new characters. It happens when you stop trying to fix the story altogether. So the shift begins not when they change, but when you do. When you stop asking why they don't love you and start asking why you keep choosing people who won't. When you stop justifying their absence and start exploring your own. When you stop thinking you have to earn love and start realizing you never did. The truth is, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you deserve. And until you challenge that belief, you'll keep drawing in the same lessons with different faces. Healing begins the moment you stop chasing, when you stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself, when you stop performing for scraps and start giving yourself the nourishment you've been denied. It's not easy. Jung never promised it would be. He called it individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole, not perfect, not universally loved, not free from pain, but whole, complete in yourself, integrated, unshaken by someone else's inability to see your value. And this journey, it's not linear. It doesn't begin in the light, it begins in the shadows, because individuation demands that you meet yourself in the places you've tried hardest to avoid, the needy part, the angry part, the insecure part, the part of you that still waits by the metaphorical door, hoping someone will return with the love they once withheld. The shadow, as Jung described it, contains all the things we repress or deny about ourselves because we've been told they are unacceptable. Too loud, too soft, too clingy, too emotional, too much. And so we bury them. We try to become likable, desirable, chosen. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It only goes underground, where it waits, and there, in the depths of the unconscious, it drives our behavior without our knowledge. We think we're making conscious choices, but we're often just reenacting old scripts, loving people who cannot love us, giving endlessly to prove our worth, silencing our needs just to be tolerated. You can't heal what you won't look at, and you can't love what you haven't accepted. As the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrote, the greatest hazard of all, losing one's self, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. We lose ourselves trying to be loved by others. We erase who we are to become someone they might stay for. But the soul doesn't tolerate lies, not for long. And so, when you're drawn to someone who can't love you back, it's not proof that you're unlovable. It's a mirror, a messenger, a flashing signal from your own psyche saying, there's something here that needs attention, something unresolved, something disowned. You begin to ask better questions, not how can I make them love me, but what are they reflecting? Not why won't they choose me, but why am I still choosing people who won't? This is where the transformation begins. It's tempting to believe that the work lies in understanding them, in decoding their behavior, interpreting their silence, reading their mixed signals like sacred texts. But the work is not in fixing them. It never was. The real work is in meeting yourself, holding yourself, becoming the source of the very love you've been outsourcing to everyone else. And here's what's profound. The moment you begin to do this, everything changes, not overnight, but subtly, and then all at once. Your nervous system, which once found comfort in chaos and anxiety and consistency, begins to recalibrate. It stops being addicted to the high of unpredictability. It starts to crave safety, stability, respect. Your taste shifts. You stop finding emotional unavailability exciting. You stop chasing the one who pulls away. You stop mistaking anxiety for love, silence for mystery, mixed signals for passion. You start recognizing that a calm heart is not a boring heart, it's a healed one. As author Brianna Wiest beautifully puts it, true love feels like peace. If it doesn't feel like peace, it's not love. But it takes time to believe that, because for so long, pain felt like proof that something mattered. You equated suffering with depth. You believed love had to hurt, that you had to suffer to earn it. The Buddhists call this tanha, thirst, craving, the root of suffering. And much of our romantic suffering isn't about love at all. It's about attachment, ego, identity. It's about trying to fill the void with someone else's validation, hoping they'll love you enough to make the emptiness go away. But love that heals doesn't come to rescue you. It comes to reflect who you've become. And so the real healing happens when you begin to love the parts of yourself that no one clapped for. The parts that were shamed, ignored, or ridiculed. When you look your abandonment in the eye and say, "You deserved better, and now I'm going to give it to you." This is what Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You do not grow by pretending to be okay. You grow by confronting what's not okay and loving yourself anyway." And here's something radical, something your logical mind may resist, but your soul already knows. You can grieve what you never received and still grow beyond it. You can mourn the love that was withheld, the embrace that never came, the words you yearned for but never heard, the safe presence that never sat beside your sadness. And even if you never got those things, you can still become whole, still build a beautiful life, still write a new story. You see, grief is not just reserved for death or endings. It also belongs to what never was. And in the realm of relationships, especially those shaped by emotional abandonment, some of the deepest wounds are carved not by what happened, but by what didn't. Psychologists call this ambiguous loss, a form of grief that occurs when something essential is missing, but not clearly gone. For instance, a parent may have been physically present, but emotionally vacant. A partner may have been affectionate in gestures, but absent in presence. You weren't left, but you weren't truly held either. And the ache from that kind of half-love lingers. Carl Jung understood this well. His concept of individuation, the process of becoming your true, integrated self, acknowledges that healing often begins with accepting and grieving the self we had to abandon just to survive. The child who swallowed their needs, the teenager who hid their feelings to avoid being too much, the adult who chased love just to feel visible. Individuation doesn't promise perfection, it offers authenticity. It says wholeness is not becoming flawless, it is becoming true. It is the end of self-betrayal. You stop trying to be lovable by someone else's standards and begin reclaiming the parts of you that were exiled just to be accepted. That's the real transformation. Not the external shift in your relationships, but the internal shift in your relationship with yourself. You begin to realize your value isn't determined by how others treat you. It's not based on how many people stay, how often they text, or how clearly they express affection. It's measured by how willing you are to stay true to yourself, especially in the face of rejection, silence, or inconsistency. Because real self-love, the kind that actually heals, is not a cute slogan or a social media trend. It's not lighting a candle and taking a bubble bath. It's deep, it's fierce, it's earned. It's built in the fire of loneliness, in the uncomfortable silence after you walk away from someone who doesn't value you. In the nights you cry, not because someone hurt you, but because you finally chose not to hurt yourself for them. In the quiet decision to stop proving you're lovable and just be, and that peace, that clarity, that strength that begins to emerge, that's the result of grief alchemized into wisdom, boundaries forged not from bitterness but from understanding. You become clearer, not colder. Your no becomes rooted in self-respect, not fear. You no longer negotiate with mixed signals because now you see that confusion is not a spiritual test. It's a red flag. And your job is no longer to decode someone's inconsistency, but to honor the clarity inside of you. You stop asking people to become what they've already shown you they can't. Because here's what's often missed. People rarely change because you love them harder. They change, if at all, because they choose to. And no amount of shrinking, performing, pleasing, or chasing will make someone emotionally available who is not ready to be. Once you begin to love yourself at your most unlovable, at your most raw, desperate, afraid, that's when you become truly free. Free not from pain, but from the compulsion to keep reliving it. Free from the need to prove anything to anyone. Free from defining yourself through the lens of someone else's ability to care for you. And in that freedom, something profound emerges. You realize that you are the love you've been waiting for. You become the anchor, the safe place, the one who stays. No one, not even the most emotionally unavailable person in the world, can take that away from you. Because it's not in their hands anymore, it's in yours. And this, Jung might say, is where individuation truly begins, not in isolation, but in integration. The moment you stop seeking wholeness in another and realize it was never outside of you to begin with.